Before you throw that beautiful ribeye steak with melted cheese and butter on it in the garbage, let me just get through this video, okay? Because I'm not trying to tell you that saturated fat is this terrible thing. We've worked way too hard to really get rid of the demonization behind it to go backwards. But I do need to help you understand that saturated fat does potentially play a role with insulin resistance. Okay, we're not out of the woods just because we've reduced carbohydrate intake. We still need to pay attention to how fats influence just the metabolism in general. But the good news and the whole point behind this video is that there is a specific kind of fat that you can add alongside saturated fats that might help protect against the negative aspects of saturated fat. So it's actually good news. There's a silver lining, okay? But after this video, check out Thrive Market. There's a 30% off discount link for your entire first grocery order. So if you go to Thrive Market and you want to order, I don't care if you want to order a bunch of pork rinds or if you want to order seaweed snacks or you want to stock your entire pantry and your fridge, they're an online grocery store so you can get it all. But that link will save you 30% off your entire grocery order. Plus you get a $50 free gift that you can choose once you do use that link. So again, that link is down below in the description, just below this video. Check out Thrive Market after this video. So there's something called saturated fat-induced beta cell apoptosis. What the heck does that mean? It means that when we consume saturated fats, they take a while to break down. Okay, so we have to remember that much like carbohydrates in sort of a kind of a relatable sense, there are different forms of saturated fat that take longer to break down, or different forms of fat in general, that some take a short amount of time to break down, some take a longer amount. So like, think about like coconut oil, for example, or MCT oil. Technically still a saturated fat, but it has very small amounts of carbon chains. So it breaks down pretty slow, or pretty quick, I should say. And then when you look at longer chain, like palmitic acid, like 22 carbon chains, it takes a long time to break down. So it's almost like the quote unquote glycemic index of fats. Well, when we eat a high amount of saturated fat, there are so much in the way of lipids floating around through our bloodstream that it can actually trigger what is called it's like a lipid toxicity. It's like so much fat that the body doesn't really know what to do with it. Apoptosis is a premature cellular death. So saturated fat-induced apoptosis means that the beta cells that are in our pancreas that are responsible for producing insulin actually can die a premature death by being exposed to so much fat. Now, how does this actually happen? Well, when we consume a lot of saturated fat, we overeat it. And I say this looking a lot of times at the ketogenic community because we think just because we're not eating carbs, and I say we, because I'm keto and I'm guilty of this too, it's easy to eat like 50, 60% of our daily calories from saturated fat. It just happens quickly and we don't even realize it. Well, you end up having what are called non-esterified free fatty acids. This means that these are fatty acids that have not had a chance to become esterified. So they're circulating through the bloodstream and they are a bunch of nutrition, a bunch of energy that the body just doesn't know what to do with because it's non-esterified. Well, this amount of just abundant energy density, because fats are very energy dense, at one time, especially in saturated fats, can cause damage to what is called the endoplasmic reticulum. Okay, it sounds like Star Trek or something. No, the endoplasmic reticulum is sort of an area of a cell that houses protein, it houses calcium, it houses some other things. It's kind of complicated. We don't need to go down that rabbit hole. The point is that when you have high amounts of saturated fat, it triggers an abundance of calcium inside the endoplasmic reticulum of a cell, so inside the cytoplasm of a cell. In human terms, English, what that means is you trigger oxidative stress inside of a cell. This oxidative stress makes the cell ultimately either function poorly, malfunction, or ultimately die, go through apoptosis. In the case of a beta cell, that means that we are literally decreasing our ability to produce insulin. If we get rid of 50% of our pancreatic beta cells, we now reduced our ability to produce insulin by 50%. You see how this could be bad, and how by trying to do the right thing with a lower carb protocol could quickly turn wrong and actually make us more insulin resistant if we're not careful. But that's where a really intriguing study that was published in the Frontiers of Pharmacology comes through, and it talks about adding olive oil. Okay, specifically oleic acid, because oleic acid is really a big constituent of olive oil, as well as things like avocado oil and guess what? Macadamia nuts. These are staples that should be part of a lower carb protocol or should be part of any kind of diet that has more than 10% saturated fat. So what exactly is it going to do? It turns out that monounsaturated fats like oleic acid can actually reverse the negative effects of saturated fat on a pancreatic beta cell. Okay, so by adding some olive oil to my ribeye steak, I might be able to mitigate some damage. I'm not saying you're going to be able to fix all the problems in the world, but it definitely seems as though the antioxidant profile of olive oil does at least help this attribute. There are other sides of saturated fat and how it can influence gene expression of specific insulin receptor cells, and I'll save that for a different video. But the bottom line with this is simple. If you're going to have saturated fat in your diet, you do want to be able to exercise your power to also get some good oleic acid in too. You see these people that are saying like, oh, well, I'm only going to eat meat and cheese and saturated fat because maybe I'm doing carnivore, things like that. I understand that, but there's also ways that you can even get monounsaturated fats in from your actual meat-based diet too. Okay, pork has a higher content of monounsaturated fats. Okay, then you have things like fish that are going to have high amounts of polyunsaturated fats. These things that might actually be able to help you out. If oleic acid is what we're after, then maybe there's some things that you can do in that category too. But if you're not carnivore and you're just eating low carb, or you're just worried about saturated fat, simply adding olive oil and avocado oil and macadamia nuts might be a way to at least protect your pancreatic beta cells a little bit. So as always, keep it locked in here on my channel. I'll see you tomorrow.